This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the September 18th, 2024 South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting. I will call this meeting to order. We do have all commissioners present this evening. At this time, I would ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted on the Township website for public access. At this time, I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to please review our public virtual meeting rules.
Thank you. The public virtual meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference during the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd also like to announce the Board of Commissioners met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters. Moving on to agenda item 4, courtesy of the floor. This is opportunity for any member of the public to comment on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone present this evening who would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
You can make your comment online.
Brian Height, 1273 Eck Road, Allentown, 18104. My question is, when is Eck Road going to be open to traffic?
Brian, if I'm correct, it's Chapman's that's closed down, correct?
No, it's Eck from the Pushkar residence to Chapman's.
I was told it was going to be on Chapman, so I will get a hold of the developer and figure out what is going on out there. I know they were running pipe in that, so I will get that clarified and I will get you an answer to that.
Yeah, because none of the residents were notified. I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbor, Mike Pushkar, who will be at the meeting next month in person. We were given a notice that they were going to do night work, and that was going to wrap up August 16th. But there's all kinds of signage about Eck Road being closed to local deliveries, and we literally have FedEx trucks moving the signs to get through rather than following the detour. So I appreciate it, Herb. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for bringing that to the attention of the township. Is there anyone else online with any public comment at this time? Does not appear to be. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 4, meeting minutes from the September 4th, 2024 Board of Commissioners meeting have been distributed in advance for your review. Are there any comments or questions? I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 6A, presentations. We have preliminary feasibility report for Jordan Creek at Covered Bridge Park by Land Studies Incorporated. And I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to please present this agenda item.
Thank you. So South Whitehall Township Management and Administration have observed repeated instances of flooding and scouring at Covered Bridge Park along the Jordan Creek. Upon review of the 2013-2014 Covered Bridge Park Master Site Plan, the proposed current and future amenities were built around the concept of remediating the environmental and flooding concerns related to the Jordan Creek. As the park has been developed over time, the environmental and hydrogeological issues have not been rectified and the flooding and scouring issues have continued. The Board of Commissioners approved the resolution during the April 17th, 2024 Commissioners meeting in order to engage environmental services firm Land Studies Incorporated to conduct a feasibility assessment for the Jordan Creek at Covered Bridge Park for the amount of $9,900. Land Studies is based in Lidditz, PA. They're an environmental firm that has extensive background and experience in working with municipalities on environmental issues and ecological plans. So the overall intent of this study was to identify options for environmental remediation in the identified study area based on the existing layout and configuration of Covered Bridge Park. It's important to note that the study is a starting point only and help to give the township options to consider for future study and remediation. So at this time, I'm prepared to turn it over to Eric Lyons of Land Studies Incorporated to review the preliminary feasibility report that the firm has put together. So the initial draft is dated August 12th, 2024. It includes comments from township staff, and the presentation's dated September 5th, 2024. I also want to note that township staff and management have worked with DCNR in order to gauge their feedback on where the township should head following the receipt of the information. And they did note that the master site plan dating back to 2013, it is due to be updated. So it might be something that the board should consider in the future to take a look at updating that master site plan for Covered Bridge Park. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Lyons.
Thanks, Tom. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me on here. I'll just try to run through this report. If there's any questions, feel free to jump in at some point if you need, or we can kind of touch base at the end of the run through of this report. So, Chris, if you're controlling it, I presume you can go ahead and scroll down through the introduction. I'll just run through kind of what we looked at. And then we can kind of dive into some of the other pieces that are in this here. So the report here, kind of summary review of what our preliminary feasibility study was developed. We performed a field visit and then also kind of reviewed some of the available GIS data. We created a topographic model to do some preliminary hydraulic studies of the park area using some LiDAR information, and we kind of made some modifications to that study to make sure that we were capturing what was actually happening down there in the creek. Kind of noted here that the data we use isn't exactly verified to what's in the field. It's not a survey grade data. It's kind of a higher level. So we use that to provide a guide and some general feedback to what the potential opportunities could be and what those possible flooding impacts could be as a result. So it's recommended that we kind of do a more detailed dive into this to really define some of those implications of these options that we came up with here. So the entirety of the park is really within the 100-year floodplain, and a majority of the park is within the FEMA-defined floodway, which is regulated through the Department of Environmental Protection, which is DEP. So within that floodway area, it's an area of land that's very highly susceptible to flooding regularly, which is indicative of the issues that you've had down there at the park. And so working within that boundary requires approvals and permitting through DEP to make sure that those impacts to that floodway are not causing other issues upstream or downstream of properties. We use some USGS data, which analyzes sort of the overland areas and kind of comes up with a calculation to define the amount of water moving through the system to equate to different storm events. And so for the park area, it comes up with a discharge of about 1,940 cubic feet per second. We can kind of look at that figure towards the end of this, but that 2-year storm is a 50% chance of a rainfall event of that scale occurring in a given year. So it's not necessarily every 2 years, but it's giving you a 50% chance of that happening. And so for reference, the December 18th storm of 2023, there's a photo below on the next slide that that storm was around 2,100 cubic feet, so just slightly above the 2-year storm. So that gives you an idea of what that volume of moving through that area would be for that. So using that modeling, we kind of created an estimate of when the playground area would flood as that begins to become the issue for the park itself. And that discharge rate is at approximately 570 cubic feet per second. So that's about a quarter of the flow of a 2-year event, which is pretty significant. So we use that as a baseline to model 2 different concept plans or concept approaches to see what 2 potential possibilities could be to possibly provide some reduction of flooding. And so what you can see here on the screen now, that upper image is a chart of the flow levels of the stream over the last 10 months or so. And so the blue line at the bottom indicates what that cubic feet per second value would be at a given time. And so you can see the December 18th storm there's on the left. You have the January 9th and 10th time frame, you had a bigger storm, and then April of this year, there was also a bigger storm. So the orange line indicates that approximation of where the 2-year storm discharge would be. So those 3 events jumped above that discharge rate. And then the red line at the bottom, that chart indicates the approximate location of where the 570 cubic feet per second flood line would be, which would indicate where the playground would potentially start flooding. So you can see there's a few other events in there that likely have flooded to some degree the park area and some other areas on the playground area as well. So, and there's that image of the December 18th storm. So again, that's just kind of giving you an idea of what a 2-year storm approximation would look like for future events. And so if you want to keep scrolling, we looked at 2 different concept ideas. Concept 1 is looking at the bridge and downstream where the gabion baskets are, and then the stream kind of makes a hard bend to the left and then a hard bend to the right. There's kind of an open grass field there at the moment, and what we were looking at there was to potentially lower that elevation along the creek and in that area to create a floodplain bench, which would allow some of those smaller storms to kind of spill out into these areas and kind of infiltrate a little bit more and just provide a little bit more of a softer edge. So what that does is really eliminates kind of the safety issues that you have with the gabion baskets, create a smoother transition from the park elevation down to the creek, more accessible, provide some more habitat, biodiversity, water quality improvements, those kinds of things. And after reviewing that, essentially the impacts to the flooding is pretty minimal. Again, this reverts back to the park area being within that floodway area where it's very difficult to manage storm flows in that case. And if you keep scrolling down, so that image there gives you kind of what the lower end of this area would look like, and then the next page shows you kind of a typical cross section of what the gabion basket section would look like. So kind of the red lines there are what you have with the gabion baskets on either side of the stream, pretty vertical, 6 to 8 foot, kind of drop right into the stream. So what we would do here is remove the gabion baskets, create a little bench at the bottom, and slope those banks back a little bit softer so that you could in fact walk down the banks down into the creek there. So that was one option we looked at. The second piece here is a little different. So the beginning of that storm flow that the beginning of the flooding really it starts at the top end where the dam is, and the water starts kind of shooting out across the bank around the dam, which I think causes a bit of the flooding in the park. So this concept 2 figure was an option to potentially create a little bit of a bypass channel around the dam through the parking lot there and across the road, and then transition back into the creek at just downstream of the bridge. And so this would create a little bit of a challenge with, removal of the parking, and getting it across the road can be a challenge as well, with needing to have some expensive culverts and such probably to carry the water. So there's an example image of what that could look like. It would be this kind of 20, 30 foot wide swale, flat bottom type thing. And then it would end up kind of in a culvert underneath the, the roadway and then dumped back into the creek just downstream of the bridge. So again, very minimal impact to reducing the larger scale storms. It has a little bit of an impact at that 570 cubic feet, but the cost to implement something like this may be prohibitive of kind of moving that forward. So I'll read through the conclusion here. Really, again, the park is in the floodway, and some of the results here kind of indicate that it would be very difficult to significantly reduce the recurrence of flooding events within that floodway. We could make some impacts to some smaller storms, I think, with some larger restoration scale items here. And there are significant other benefits to removal of the gabion baskets to create that floodplain bench, which I think may outdrive some of the impacts to the flooding. So you've got the safety and the habitat and water quality components that could be beneficial for the park and the residents locally as well. So the other thing we kind of quickly looked at was some of the other areas outside of that floodway. So towards the downstream end, the lower end of the park, you have some basketball courts, and there's an adjacent sort of sloped property that, if it were to become available, could be a potential opportunity to make some improvements. So focusing improvements, as Tom was mentioning with that new updating the master plan, maybe taking a look at some of the opportunities outside of the floodway to make sure that the improvements that you're paying for are sustainable long term. So I can quickly run through the figures here just based on what we went through. So figure 1 here is kind of, you can see the whole park. The yellow boundary is the parcel line of the park. You can see the channel that kind of runs through the middle of the screen. That is where the creek is, and then that blue line or blue hash area is the floodway. So that's the area that we're looking at that is difficult to manage those flood flows in and make a larger impact there. Figure 2 there, you scroll down, is concept 1. That is the approximate area of what we modeled for this study. So taking out the gabion baskets on the right bank there and kind of opening up the lower end where that S turn is in the creek to create that floodplain area. If you keep going down, figure 3 then is that concept 2, that high flow bypass channel around the dam. So there'd be a lot of engineering involved with this one that would make it a little bit tougher to implement, I think. To keep going, figure 4 is, so this is the existing condition at that 570 CFS. So you can see here the blue kind of creeping in from the left there is the elevation of the water. So the darker it gets, the deeper it gets. So at this 570 CFS, you're starting to see it creep into the playground there, right adjacent to the roadway there, just kind of just southeast of the one arrow from the dam. Yeah, there you go. So you can kind of see it creeping across the road there. So if you go to figure 5, this is that concept 1 restoration area. You can see there's a larger blue area now downstream and less in the uh, playground area. So kind of expanding that floodplain, allowing some flows to jump into that area versus kind of backwatering into the playground. So that S turn really slows the water down, especially being confined in that deep channel. So by flattening that out, you're able to let those flows kind of smoothly flow across and downstream. Uh, Figure 6 then indicates the bypass channel. You can see we have it labeled there, the bypass channel. This one significantly reduces that potential flooding in the playground area at that 570 feet per second. Um, but again, the larger storms that are these, both of these kind of restorations are having minimal impact. So if you keep scrolling down, now we've got the figure 7 will show the existing condition of the 2-year storms. So we're seeing the whole park really being more or less underwater to some capacity at that 2-year storm. Um, so if you keep going down, figure 8 shows the restoration section. So it's hard to even tell the difference really here. There is some impact to where some things are flooding, but it is very minimal to what you can really see without kind of detail look at it. And then figure 9 is the same storm, that 2-year storm with the bypass channel. And so again, you can see that we're looking at the whole park still really being underwater to the same degree as kind of the existing conditions. So that's running through the report quick. Happy to take any questions.
I have a quick question. By removing the gabion baskets, would that not increase erosion of that area? I thought the baskets were there to prevent that erosion. Would that be causing another problem if they were removed?
So I believe the gabions were installed because the banks were so vertical in the very beginning. So what this approach would do would be to slope those banks, essentially create maybe 5 or 10 feet of sort of a floodplain wetland bench on either side of the creek, and then slope the creek the that same elevation, slope it back at a gradual slope so that it could withstand those flows. So it's become channelized as the gabions and the existing stream channel have really kind of cut down and made it vertical. So the idea here would be to kind of flatten those slopes out and get it vegetated with some native plants, and then create a more stable condition.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So looking at your proposals, you do nothing upstream of the dam uh, to hold water or to capture some of the water to slow it flow downstream. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the work upstream, essentially what the dam creates is a backwater condition, and if you walk up the creek there, basically from the dam all the way up to 476, the water is almost flat. So by doing work upstream, it would fill in extremely quickly. So you'd kind of be at the same condition you're at currently. Um, and so that elevation change and what what's happening with the dam holding that water back. It really allows that flow, because the flow gets very slow until it gets to the dam, and then it kind of picks up a little bit.
Okay, is there, to protect the parking lot, the east side of Ware Mill Road, I've seen berms built and, vegetation put in there, et cetera, et cetera. Did you consider anything like that to try to protect that part of the park?
I'm not sure which section you're looking at. I kind of missed that. Sorry.
So where the playground is, between the playground and the road, where you have, and I take it from figure 4, the two blue areas by the playground, there's a gap in between them, and I take it you're saying that it's going to flood the road also. If it's not flooding the road as you depicts here, is there a way that we could do something landscape-wise to protect that part of the park from the water coming over out of the upstream part of the dam?
Sure. So the way this modeling works is it builds an elevation. So it fills in the valleys first. So that's why it doesn't show the road being flooded. In this case, the road would likely be flooded as well. But what you're describing is within that floodway area. So kind of creating any kind of berm would be considered more of like a levee. And DEP would need to do some approvals for that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you'd probably be looking at something in the 5 to 10 foot high range, minimum probably, to withstand the 2-year storm. So you're looking at something pretty significant to provide an impact to a fairly regular storm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm looking at, the figure 4 you have is approximately 570 cubic feet, which is not a 2-year storm. It's, it's a significant rain, which we get, but something, it's not totally inundating the playground area, but something for the kind of storms that we get to help protect them, not with a 10-foot levee, but something smaller to protect it from this more common type of storm that we get around that 570 cubic foot mark that you put, is just what I'm asking.
Yeah.
There's, so the other thing is downstream, there's a lot of areas where we could do the same thing. We wouldn't be removing the baskets. They don't have baskets down there, but creating more areas to kind of fill up or for the water to go before it leaves the banks. Did you look at any of those things downstream, and how far I take it you stopped at Lap Road then? I take it.
Yeah, we went down to the crossing, the other covered bridge at the bottom. Yes. So we did look at some things downstream. Really, that S bend and the dam bridge area are where we focused our efforts. Anything really downstream of that S bend would have probably less of an impact in that playground parking area upstream. So there are definitely opportunities throughout the entire park to do this kind of restoration approach and make some impacts to those smaller storms. But obviously, there's kind of that threshold of what that impact would be, what storm size that would be, and what those ancillary benefits are, and what the desired use of the park as well. So.
I just have one comment, and it's simply to say thank you. I know a lot of us for a long time have wondered if anything could be done, and it's a feasibility study, but a lot of us ask the question: is there anything here to significantly impact the floods that we've seen, especially over the past couple of years? And although the answer, is it's summed up in your conclusion well, that significantly reducing these challenges is not feasible. I still wanted to thank you for your work, and I think this gives us a good blueprint, and maybe allows us to redirect our energy and attention elsewhere in the park. So thank you for your work on this. It's greatly appreciated.
I
Welcome, thank you.
concur. I did have a question. A couple years back, the township did have a couple of meetings to discuss flooding down at the park, and I recall the conversation was led to a point of considering a more regional study upstream. So this water, the impact of it seems to have been increased over the last several years. Is there something regionally that can be studied to get a better picture of why we are being impacted so significantly now? Is that did you review any data or anything beyond this park and this study area?
The only thing we really looked at was kind of a briefly with the USGS data that I was discussing earlier regarding the amount of water coming in. So looking at the scale of the watershed, once you get into these bigger watersheds, it's much more difficult to make those more significant impacts. And so you've got this great amenity of a creek through this park area, and you just kind of have to understand what that means from that flooding standpoint and how you want to move forward with implementing projects in and around those areas. So you can really use this area as a environmental sanctuary, if you will. But there's other things you can do with it as well, and you've got enough space outside of that floodway that you can really focus future improvements in those areas. But overall, I think there's other ways to look at what you're describing, those watershed plans. You can start looking at sort of feeder streams and other streams upstream of this park to maybe make some other impacts to help potentially reduce that stuff.
Thank you for your answer to my question, and thank you for this very comprehensive study. It's very good information for our township and our board as we consider the use of this park. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner comments at this time? Are there any public comments? Are there any comments from anyone online?
Not seeing any comments.
Very good. Tom, did you have anything to add at this point?
Only that I think staff and I will work together to come up with next steps with respect to the master site plan and any potential budget impacts of that, and then we'll circle back with you.
Do you have a timeline in mind for when that
Well,
study could be?
We would want to apply for a DCNR C2P2 grant. So the next round opens up in approximately April of 2025, and then they would be awarded later that year. We would probably at this point be a 26 project. So financially, wouldn't necessarily budget for it in 25.
Very good. Thank you. And that concludes our presentation on the feasibility report. Again, thank you for the presentation and the work of this study. We appreciate all of your dedication and time for this. Moving on to agenda item 6B thank you. Presentation Summer Camp Report. Our Park and Rec Manager, Lynn Matula, is here to give us an update.
Hello. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm just here to report on the wrap up of the summer camp, but first wanted to say thank you to the Board of Commissioners, Township Manager Tom Petrucci, and Public Works Director and Director of Operations Herb Bender for your support of this program. You have a report in front of you, so I'm just going to summarize important parts of it for the public. The South Whitehall Summer Camp is a long-running program. It's an 8-week program and it's full-time, so that means Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 p.m. The campers participate in various activities and crafts, on-site visits, off-site visits. We have 3 locations in South Whitehall, all through the school district. So we utilize 3 elementary schools. That's Satronia Elementary, Kratzer Elementary, and Parkway Manor. Some examples of the daily activities are sport games, trivia, educational games, craft projects, playground time, water play. Some of the on-site visits we had this year were from South Whitehall Police and Public Works. They came with vehicles and allowed campers to climb and check out the vehicles and learn a little bit more about what they do in their jobs and on a daily basis. The fire companies came. As you might remember, the summer was extremely hot, so the fire companies came and were kind enough to spray the campers down with their hoses, and the campers love that, of course. The art bus was there. This year they brought some wooden projects for campers to paint, and that's always a fun time. The Parkland Library came with a new scavenger hunt, which was a big hit. We had the Lucky Dutchman gem mine, which the campers loved. And then we had Kona Ice and Mon and Mel's ice cream truck come for weekly visits, which also were big hits with the campers. Some offsite visits, we had days at Covered Bridge Park. So the counselors got to rotate the campers through the sport fields, the playground, and the creek, play in the creek, which we just talked about. We had 2 pool days, which we did pool days last summer for the first time, and they were a big hit. So we planned 2 for each site this year. This year, though, we worked with a new pool, the Emmaus Community Pool. So I would like to say thank you to them. They had never had a summer camp visit. So I think they were interested to see how that would go. They're very flexible and wonderful to work with. Their lifeguards were professional and attentive, and everybody, we felt like we were in very good hands there. The pool is a wonderful size and very well kept, so we're excited to go back there next year. So wanted to say thank you to the Emmaus Community Pool. Registration, as you may already know, it opens in March each year. There's a priority registration for South Whitehall residents. Once that's done, it then opens up to non-residents for any spots that are still remaining. Once those spots are full, we start a wait list. As we hire counselors and see where we end up with counselor numbers, we try to open up more spots to get those people off the wait list if we can. So this year we ended up with 351 residents and 57 non-residents in the program. We were full at each site and beyond full actually at each site. So we did well there.
So are those numbers, you have 351 residents and how many?
57 non-residents. And again, those are only if there are spots remaining at the sites. For staffing details, we had 28 total counselors, so that breaks down to 22 regular counselors and 6 site supervisors, which are basically head counselors. Those are then distributed to the 3 sites. This year, Rand, Deanna, and I were able to implement some changes to try to make the hiring paperwork and the paperwork tracking process a little bit more streamlined and easier for the new summer camp staff to navigate, and that worked really well. So thank you to them for their work with that process. We also restructured the departmental intern positions to have 1 camp supervisor position and 1 floating site supervisor / intern position. The camp supervisor goal was to hire someone with more professional experience, able to help supervise the 3 sites, handle some of the parental communication and the incident responses at the 3 sites, and be kind of my right hand, basically. The floating site supervisor intern, the idea for that position was a returning staff member, somebody with camp experience specifically, and that kind of institutional knowledge of the camp itself to really help with the camp preparation and closing. So that's a lot of the supply inventory and knowing what every site needs with me and laying that all out. Also, that person was vital for helping to fill in any staffing gaps due to vacations and things like that. So that was a really vital position to have as well. That structure was very successful, so we look forward to that same structure next year. Both the site supervisor and the floating site supervisor, Michelle Munker, was our summer camp supervisor. She was wonderful. She is interested in returning, so we're really excited about that. And our floating site supervisor / intern, Emerson Apgar, is also interested in returning. So we're very excited about that. We felt like they were wonderful additions, and especially Michelle. She also worked really well with the counselors with her education background. She is a teacher, And she just was wonderful with the parents as well. Financial breakdown, you have it in front of you, so I'll just say the overall registration revenue was $115,981.50. We did have our first ever t-shirt sponsor this year, so that was exciting. That's Kids Strong of Allentown. They're newer, I guess, to the township, maybe 3 or so years old, but they've been very involved in different rec programs and things like that. So we're excited to have their cooperation and partnership. Our total expenses were $92,946.28. So that was under budget. That's partially because we were down one counselor. So we intended to hire 29, ended up with 28. And then we also, because the staff wages were increasing, we were also just very conscious of the supply spending. So we were really conscious of that, knowing that the staff wages did increase, which we felt like were necessary, but it was an increase that we really wanted to watch. But we ended up coming in under budget, so we were happy with that. So then looking forward to next summer, as always, we'll continue to look for ways to improve and expand what we can offer the campers, different activities, on-site, off-site visits. We've incrementally increased the counselor numbers. We just our main goal is to make sure that we're providing a safe and positive environment for the campers and the counselors. So that is our number one goal, and we're budgeting for 30 total counselors next year. And that way, we're always making sure there's multiple eyes on everybody at all times. We, again, look forward to the summer camp supervisor and the floating site supervisor coming back, Michelle and Emerson. We're excited about their return. And we are looking at a slight increase in the expenses for the staff wages because we will be reinstating that 50-cent increase for the returners. This year with the general increase, we did not have that. So then 2025, South Whitehall has always given a 50-cent increase to the returning counselors, just as another incentive to get those counselors back, because the returners are they're pretty vital to each site running well with just that little bit more of experience versus all new camp counselors every year. So we're just looking at that increase, and we'll keep an eye on that for next year.
Fantastic. Lynn, thank you for this presentation. It's wonderful to hear a snapshot of how this program went. I appreciate you highlighting the community partners that work to enrich and enhance the program. So we want to thank all of them. And I just want to thank you and all of the staff involved for a successful program and for continuing to build on our past successes as you look forward to planning out for next year, which is indicated here in your look ahead. So thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, people rave about our park program, the parks program. I mean, that's like a shining star. It's one of the positive things. And people are always asking, how can we get our kids into this? Well, you got to get signed up early, which is good. It's a good program. They want to get their kids in there. So it's a great job. And thank you and all your staff. Like, this just is a feather in the township's cap. Well done.
Thank you. And the staff, they're the front line. They're, working with the kiddos every day, and we're very lucky to have such a great staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, for all your hard work throughout the summer, not only throughout the summer, but for putting this together so we could see it. I mean, everything's there. So thank you so much. I did have a question about medical issues. If a kid needed or a camper needed an EpiPen or something, is that the responsibility of the senior staff, like the supervisors?
So we have a form that is basically a medical storage form. So anybody who has to store medication at the campsite, if they would rather have it be in our first aid kit versus their child's backpack, we can do that. They fill out a form. The form very clearly states, though, that we are not able to administer that medication, and we're not responsible for reminding the camper to take that medication. It would get tricky with something like an EpiPen, but we would we would be calling 911 first. And if the 911 operator instructs the counselor to administer the EpiPen, they would clearly do that. They wouldn't do that probably on their own necessarily. It would depend on the situation, but we try to make it very clear that, you know, these are camp counselors. They have first aid and CPR certification. They do have that education. So they're only going to work with whatever they're equipped to do. They'll stay in their lane, quote unquote. But we do have something in place for if somebody wants to have that medication there and just wants and would rather it be in our first aid kit versus their child's backpack. But we can't administer it or, you know, sometimes if the counselor gets to know the camper, they might say, hey, remember, Johnny, you have to take your pill at noon. You know, they'll start to try to do that, but we make it very clear that they can do that if they like, but it's storage.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hopefully that answered your question.
I have one question. Lynn. Have we had any medical problems with any of the kids?
Every year we have some injuries.
I mean, nobody with seizures or anything like that?
No major medical issues like that, thankfully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation.
Oh, sure. Thank you for your support.
Just add one comment to all the wonderful comments that have been so accurately stated so far, but thank you for all your planning throughout the year. You know, this is not just the 8 weeks, and a lot of work goes into this, and you're obviously already thinking about next year, and a lot of work goes on behind the scenes that you do. So thank you for that. It really, I think, helps make this program as successful as it is. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Very good. Thank you again, Lynn. Moving on to agenda item 7A, ordinances. We have an ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Part 1, Administrative Legislation, Chapter 62, Police Department, to add a new Article 3 entitled Towing to the Codified Ordinances of South Whitehall Township, providing for removal of damaged, disabled, or snowbound vehicles for all types that have been deemed a hazard to the motoring public, and further providing for authorization, specifications, non-exclusive towing contractor, qualification of contractor, insurance, contractor default, liability for subcontractors, payment of bills, snow emergency declaration provision, duration of contract, indemnification, nature of relationship, repealer, failure to enforce, not a waiver, severability, and an effective date. And I'll ask Township Manager Tom Petrucci to present this agenda item.
Thank you. So in the past, South Whitehall Township has bid out towing services after establishing the rate for the services within the bid specifications. So it's since been clarified we technically don't need to bid out the service since the township isn't paying for the service. It's a pass-through. So towing services are needed for the use of the police department for the removal of damaged, disabled, or snowbound vehicles of all types that have been deemed a hazard to the motoring public, or for towing as required by necessary for a lawful and an appropriate law enforcement action within the township. In lieu of continuing the practice of soliciting bids for the towing services, Assistant Township Solicitor Jennifer Aldifer has drafted an ordinance that accomplishes the following in a comprehensive manner. So it allow the township manager to execute contracts with towing entities, confirms the fact that the Board of Commissioners will establish the fees for towing services within the approved fee schedule of the township, which is typically approved by resolution at the first meeting in January. It incorporates specifications and requirements that are consistent with past practices of the township for insurance, for liability, and so forth, and for location of the towing entity, and establishes the minimum qualifications. So basically, I wanted tonight to ask for permission to advertise the ordinance, authorization from the board. Before we do that, since it's the first time you've done that, I wanted to see if there's any questions or comments on the ordinance.
Very good, Tom. Thank you for presenting this agenda item this evening. I certainly just have a couple of questions. One was, how will the vendors be selected, and will South Whitehall Township vendors be prioritized or given first opportunity to apply?
Well, the ordinance basically mandates that the towing entity has to be 2.5 miles from the township border. So really, we would endeavor to work with entities that that first of all, we know to be reliable, and we would try to continue that practice where it's a known quantity. And we can certainly continue to investigate new entities that are available at the time that contracts expire. So the way this ordinance would work is that when we would enter into the contracts as they expire, and then basically we would have the opportunity once they do expire to reevaluate the vendors that we're using for this service. So that could include reaching out to South Whitehall towing companies as applicable, or new ones that come on. We don't know who is going to be available at the time that the contract's done, but we could certainly endeavor to do that research ahead of time. And I could work with the police department and with our procurement officials to make that happen.
Very good, thank you. I'll open up to the board for any comments.
Yeah, I
or
have a
questions.
question. How many are we using right now?
Right now we have 2.
Are we going to continue to use 2, or are you going to add more?
The ordinance is the way it really works, the way it's structured with the schedule. The magic number is 2,
Right.
because we alternate between the scheduling. But the ordinance is structured that we wouldn't necessarily be limited to 2. We could enter into contracts with more. And if the main 2 aren't available, it allows us to use other entities as well, depending on availability. So the whole goal of this is to have consistency with the fees, which we already have, but this way it's not by way of a bid, which costs money for advertisement. So we're trying to have the same outcome without having to actually bid, since it's not a requirement. But at the same time, make sure that we are not relying on the entities themselves to establish the fees. So we would establish the fees, have that be consistent, and then make sure the entities we utilize meet our requirements.
Steve, have we had any problems with the police? We haven't calling these guys?
No, our current tow contractors, or the ones we had bid with, have been excellent.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board?
So when this goes out, Tom, I guess we'll get a list of 5 contractors and you have to pick, we're going to have to pick from that, or?
We can try to get as many as we can. I mean, I can't
Right,
say.
so I'm just using 5 examples.
Yeah.
We're going to get a number of
Right.
these come back, and then we're going to have to pick,
We're going to.
because the fees are all the same. It's not like we're picking the lowest or the highest, because the fees are the fees. It's,
Correct. And that's why we're pivoting from the bid platform, because it's really not a bid, right? With the bid, you have to go with the lowest responsible bidder. In this case, it's not the mathematics, the output of funds are not part of the equation.
right. So they would have to show that they could respond within a number of time. They have enough vehicles to handle a snowstorm, like an October snowstorm where they got to do a lot of towing. They have so many vehicles. That would be what would set them apart, I take it?
Exactly. And location, as well as, whether they meet the insurance requirements and so forth.
So right now, we don't have a problem, knock on wood, but I guess the chief would come back and say, hey, this company's not meeting our things. We'd like to remove them based on the ordinance or something like that.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly how it's intended to work.
Can we
So,
do a policy for insurance purposes?
Yeah, then that would be
Do a
contained.
background check on these people?
I don't know if we do a full background check. Right. They conduct their own background checks.
Yes, listed in the ordinance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew that. I
Background.
just didn't know if we're going
Yeah, but we don't run them, is what. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
so in section 62-11, the qualifications, so they have to meet the same criteria as they did before when we went out to bid. They have to prove all those things to you or give you all that information. Is that?
That is
right?
correct.
Okay.
We essentially took the requirements in the contracts that we currently have and duplicated it in the ordinance.
Any other board comments? Is there any public comment? Any online comments?
I'm not seeing anything online.
Okay, hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to proceed with advertising of said ordinance? Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Agenda item 8, resolutions. 8A, we have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the execution of a supplemental professional services agreement with Michael Baker International to complete the additional scope of work for the Jordan Creek Greenway, Lap Road to Parkland High School, Phase 2. Tom, if you would please present.
Thank you. So the township was previously awarded a $150,000 DCNR grant with a matching requirement of $150,000 for design and engineering only for both phases 1 and 2 of the Jordan Creek Greenway, segments 35 to 45. So that connects Weir Mill Road to Cedar Crest Boulevard along the Jordan Creek, and it also provides a direct connection between Parkland High School and Covered Bridge Park. So South Whitehall has now completed construction of the trail from Weir Mill Road to Lap Road, which is 41 to 45 through Covered Bridge Park. And the township received a $1 million grant from PennDOT through the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program for construction of this 1 mile section of the trail. As everyone knows now, that section is now completed. So the encumbered costs associated with the project are provided as follows. Grace Industries for the construction phase was $922,467.70. Traffic and Planning and Design was the required inspector under the PennDOT contract for $140,445.36. So total encumbered monies were $1,062,913.06. We had budgeted $1.325 million because at the time we didn't know where everything was going to come in with the contract. We have just over $262,000 available. So at this point, the township needs to close out the design and engineering grant through DCNR for the second phase of the project. So we've proactively obtained an extension of time through December 31st, 2025 in order to do that. So this next phase it requires 3 easements to connect the trail from Lap Road to Cedar Crest Boulevard and Parkland High School. The township has already acquired those easements. So the township is really at this point at 80% of the design work completed. So we need to finish the remaining design and engineering. We also already completed a cultural resources assessment as required to satisfy the environmental clearances. So Michael Baker is the assigned consultant for the project. The township had already received $135,000 of the $150,000 in grant reimbursement funding. And as indicated before, we're required to match that total of the $150,000 split. There's an open purchase order of $169,877 for the project. Currently, at the typing of the memo, had just over $21,000 available on that. To date, the township has spent a total of $148,161.33 on the purchase order. So factoring in all the previously closed purchase orders over time, we've spent just over $268,000 of costs on the project, including the grant-funded portion. So the current and past DCNR-funded design work has primed and facilitated the successful completion of the TASA-funded Weir Mill Road to Lap Road construction portion of the project. So it's necessary at this time to complete the DCNR grant and complete the design and permitting of phase 2 from Lap Road to Parkland High School, and then develop specifications and construction drawings that would meet the requirements of the Transportation Set-Asides program, should the township be inclined to apply for a grant in the future. So to be completely clear, the additional costs of completing the remaining portion of the work are $84,508, of which factors in $27,082 for making those drawings and specifications TASA ready. So supplement number 6, dated September 5th, was enclosed within your packets, and it breaks out all of the itemized work associated with the scope to be completed. So on a very high level, The construction costs for phase 2 are anticipated to exceed $1 million. So a TASA grant does not require the township to match the construction costs. Of course, no grant is guaranteed, but this would give the township the chance of, if you were to apply for one, which would be subject to a separate action of the board next year, you would have the ability to indicate that the project would be shovel ready at that time. At this point for tonight, we're only seeking approval for the remaining design work. So this would get the township to the high school, and from there you could evaluate future connections and work with federal, state, and local entities to identify the next phases of the project. So within your packets was a status map of what has been completed to date, and then what this next segment would entail. And then from there, it remains very open in terms of where we would go. There's no current design work done for any other portion of the project in South Whitehall beyond these phases 1 and 2. So if the board's inclined, I would seek an approval to encumber, to approve the resolution which allowed me to sign the supplemental agreement with Michael Baker, and then separately also to approve a motion to encumber the $84,508 of capital reserve funds, which are currently available within the capital reserve budget.
Very good, Tom. Thank you for this presentation and for proactively looking ahead on this planning phase to encumber the 84,000 to have this all wrapped up for future grant submission if the township should choose to do so. I'm in support of this, but I did have a question. Originally, the trail was supposed to connect from the first phase over to the game preserve. Is that something that has been discussed at the, in the township and with township staff? Is that on the drawing board?
Yeah, it's on a very high level. That's the overall goal. But at this time, we have no real concrete way to do that, to get it there. So that's where, any trail that you're involved with, there's years and years of planning that are required in order to get to the construction phase. So we're kind of reaching the end of what has been determined to be shovel ready, and will require significant work with landowners and other municipal entities to get us to that location.
So do you envision after this next phase, if we do proceed with it, the township will need to do further studies and more long-range planning for the next section that we may proceed on?
Yes, I mean, the model that we've been utilizing has been to seek DCNR grant funding for the design and engineering, and then use that to work with the construction, the designs and the drawings, and use that for then grant funding at the construction level. So yeah, there would be a significant amount of planning work and design work to get to those next stages, and interaction with landowners.
Very good, thank you.
I only have a sort of a follow-up question to that. Have you heard at all from, and I believe if you look at the original plans of the trail, I don't have them in front of me now, that the trail, a majority of it runs through South Whitehall, but there are also portions in North Whitehall Township and Whitehall Township. Do you know the status, maybe even the city of Allentown, do you know the status of the work or the planning in either of the other municipalities, or are we the only one that's really?
I think Chris Stroller can best answer that question, since he's very much involved in it.
Especially North Whitehall, because even if once we complete our part, we're not able to make it down to the Lehigh River, we're at least able, our residents, or if they want to bike or walk up to the game preserve, what's their status with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So actually, just this past year, there was a regional management plan completed that involved all of the entities along the Jordan Creek, including Lehigh County. That plan was prepared by Michael Baker. And what we have been doing is coordinating. So typically the municipalities have taken on the design and engineering and construction of their own sections. And when it gets to municipal border, we've been somewhat coordinating, but since we haven't been there yet, at the edge of that. So we have been meeting with North Whitehall Township, and they're very interested in kind of activating their planning. They have been kind of, I don't want to say late to the table, but they haven't had the push from either end. Now that the township is starting, South Whitehall is starting to complete more sections of our trail, Lehigh County at Trexler Nature Preserve is also wrapping up their final section of trail, which will kind of finish off where they are. So North Whitehall is that kind of last remaining piece between us and the game preserve. So we have been coordinating about how we can work together in that future connection and making sure that we are doing our planning. As Tom mentioned, we're kind of looking at how we handle design and how we handle coordination amongst landowner acquisitions, easement acquisitions if necessary. We've also been coordinating this with our active transportation plan and highlighting the need to identify these gaps in our active transportation plan. So I think there's really good municipal coordination right now, especially with North Whitehall.
That's great to hear. And just as a follow-up, and this isn't related to what we're approving tonight, but it seems like an appropriate time to ask the question. What are, do we have plans, and what are the challenges besides dealing with landowners? So basically, what are the challenges, and is there a route planned for the part of the trail beyond 309 to North Whitehall Township? Are we still planning on following the creek, taking an alternate route, and what are the challenges? Because ultimately, if North Whitehall gets, I'm just looking at the map of the municipalities, they don't have that much to cover comparatively. What are the plans for that sort of small northwest corner of the township?
We've been coordinating with PennDOT to talk about how we utilize Route 309, and that's kind of the first initial hurdle that we have to tackle. And we've looked at what are our options there, both legally and physically, with the infrastructure, and how the Route 309 Betterment Project also ties into this. We've been communicating that with North Whitehall to let them know as we kind of get further with our conversations with PennDOT, what routes and options we're looking at to make sure that lines up with what they are. As part of the management plan that was completed by Michael Baker, one of the tasks that we asked them to look into is to help identify some potential concepts related to our state roadways, which are administratively probably one of the largest challenges. So they prepared some of that for Kernsville Road over at the Kernsville Bridge over the Greenway. And so we're working off of that. I believe North Whitehall now is looking at how they can potentially do some design work to get them to Kernsville Road. And we would be looking at what are our options using potentially some of the existing roadways that are locally owned to get us to there, and what that could mean for trail connection for, as we will identify in our active transportation plan, kind of the further end of the cyclist pedestrian, the much more confident who is comfortable working on the road, and then focus our efforts for the other end of that scale for more of our families, people with strollers, kids walking around, focus around our kind of park and the section that we're talking about tonight, the kind of shared use path, wider, fully separated facilities that allows enough distance with that trail to make it a destination for people to use and recreate. And also in the active transportation plan, we kind of look at Covered Bridge Park as sort of the hub for this, and the idea of connecting to within and around that, including up to the high school and out to other ends of the park, is those are what we call the spokes. So it's the idea of connecting to a larger, much more comfortable location for one type of user, and then that linear route is more of a connection for, I'll say, more of your hardcore users that are going maybe 14 miles up to the nature preserve.
So thanks. And again, not to belabor the subject, but questions keep coming to me as we're talking about this now. And again, just looking at the map, 309 Kernsville Road, certainly an option. Has any consideration been given, just based on where the creek flows, and I know we're going to talk about our landscapes plan, but taking the trail, incorporate some historical aspects, other aspects through Goothsville, and then up along Jordan Road. I don't know, we probably have to obtain easements, stuff like that. But just looking, 309 to Kernsville really goes out of the way of the creek. And I don't know if it's even been looked at, but then, following Jordan Road, basically up to the township line. I don't know if that's been, it seemed like it would incorporate more, it would get residents away from whatever sort of a mess 309 is going to be in Kernsville Road and keep them more on the path of the creek. Just again, throwing that out there, it might be way too early to even talk about that.
The short answer to your question is yes. We're exploring all the options there, especially kind of 309 and around. And we are playing around with the ideas that with PennDOT, what we can do and can't do with the existing infrastructure that's there. And that helps direct us to if there's a way to potentially, our goal is safety and connections. So if there's a way to kind of utilize the underpass of the bridge, get around, potentially use the bridge, get us into Goothsville, I think you hit the nail on the head. It creates a kind of endpoint for that one user type that I discussed, where you have people that they're walking to the end of the trail. Now they can potentially get into a historic village. I think it's a great way to highlight some of the commercial aspects of that village and maybe some of the revitalization of that village, especially being a potential trailhead. So we are exploring that. And it starts first with our biggest hurdle, and that's 309 PennDOT, and go from there.
And even walking back on Jordan Road or driving back there, it's a beautiful part of the township that I don't think a lot of people get to see. So
yeah,
thanks for
exactly.
all your work on that.
It's a nice kind of roadway that I think with the right sort of design can almost be like a destination type of trail.
Are they still looking at how to get across Cedar Crest?
Yes, there were some studies done.
I know at one time they were talking up above by the Troxel School, putting a bridge, covered bridge to get across it.
What we've been doing regarding Cedar Crest is it comes to really the not having the ownership or the easements on the east side of Cedar Crest. So what we're looking at is where we can focus our attention now and kind of finish, I don't want to say the low hanging fruit because it's all been pretty challenging, but where we can focus our best efforts to where we've invested time and money already, like finishing this section, getting to the high school, having that landing point, and then depending on whether there's future development, future opportunities for easements or future opportunities for acquisition to the east of Cedar Crest, we will work within connecting the point A of where we have the trail now to point B, where the trail exists in Lehigh County's park and Jordan Creek Parkway.
Because this will go down into Allentown then, supposedly.
Correct. So at Mock Chunk Road,
right,
the trail starts up again in Lehigh County's Jordan Creek Parkway, and it's complete now all the way from there through Whitehall Township and through the city of Allentown. So the trail does end currently in the city of Allentown near Jordan Meadows Park. And I know the city has interest in also looking at connecting that into some other trail systems within the city.
Okay, thank you.
The only, we prove the money, I don't have a problem. The only thing is that we talk about design stage, and one of the things just looking at this now is parking. So I take it school is going to be okay with people parking there to start at that. So you talked about a hardcore person that park at the school, walk to 309 and then walk back or whatever that they do. Or, on Longmeadow Road, somebody just parks along the side of the road, gets out and starts walking on a pit. So that would be a concern of mine as you're designing this, where these people can safely park and not cause bigger problems.
Yeah, it's a good question.
The school was involved with the easements, so they are aware of this project. So I mean, basically, as we get to the final design drawings, though, that's a good point. We should definitely speak to them and make sure there's no concerns, especially with all their future planned expansion.
Yeah, the school has been supportive of tying this into their system. They see it as a benefit when we've been talking with them as part of the active transportation plan, just having that more connectivity. The other thing that we're planning on doing now that the section that ends at the parking lot at Lap Road is now complete, we're looking at focusing efforts for that to be a designated trailhead because that has plenty of parking. It's in the park. So that becomes kind of the area where we're directing people. The connection to the school wouldn't be something where we're saying go park at the school. It's more.
It has parking, plenty is open for interpretation.
I'm sorry, what?
Plenty is open for interpretation,
Oh.
but there is parking, right? So you can get on a Lap Road and then you can go. But if somebody wants to start at the other end, like Tom said, one of you said that they're going to do a lot of construction in that area. How much they're going to do and when, who knows? But that gaining access and safely gaining access should be put on a list of discussion points, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So that will be wrapped up in the planning of this next stage when we get to that point, these considerations for parking and
Yes.
how to accommodate visitors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a quick follow-up question that Chris's question brought into mind. Because the school district hasn't finalized, and again, we're just in the planning phase, because they haven't finalized their plans for a multitude of their projects. If they are going to make substantial improvements to their property currently south of the high school, where basically our planned trail runs all along Ritter and then up Cedar Crest. And again, this would be part of the planning phase, but is there a world in which they are making right-of-way improvements along Ritter and up Cedar Crest that would include sidewalks, paths? I foresee a world in which they have to make improvements, and as part of that, again, I'm not sure the property history there, but may have to make some sort of roadway improvements along Ritter on their side of property and up Cedar Crest, where to the point where we may only have to complete this trail up basically from Lap to south of Ritter. Again,
Yes. So all we've seen so far now from their sketch plan has been more on the northern side of the facility. I believe maybe some stormwater improvements on Cedar Crest or off of Cedar Crest. But that is something where, depending on the timeline of their proposed improvements, and that's kind of the importance of getting this next phase together to have our engineer ready to go to start to lay something out, work with the school district.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as Tom mentioned, it just gives us the kind of construction ready plans to take to the next steps. Those next steps it may be beneficial to the township to wait and not pursue a grant next year if there's something that we can coordinate with the school district down the line when they, if and when they have to make any right-of-way improvements.
But we should coordinate it now in the design phase to the maximum extent that we can to be proactive.
And just so you know, there was comments made, sorry to jump in here. There were comments made when the sketch plan came in about frontage improvements on those roads. So, I think that it's in there, at least was put into their minds. So we'll see where it goes.
I believe we might even have sidewalk deferrals on sections of that it makes sense. And we've looked at it in other places. Instead of a sidewalk, something like a path could help satisfy some of that.
Any other commissioner questions? Or any public comment on this agenda item? Anyone online with any questions?
I'm not seeing anyone online.
Very good. Then at this point, I need a motion to adopt said resolution.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then I need a motion to encumber capital reserve funds as explained for Jordan Creek Greenway Project, Lap Road to Parkland High School Phase 2. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for your input. Agenda item 8B, we have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, adopting the 2024 South Whitehall Township Landscapes Plan. And I'll ask our long-range planner, Chris Stroll, to please present this agenda item.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. As you all know, for probably the past month and a half, we've been talking about the South Whitehall Landscapes Plan, the Open Space, Agricultural, Natural, Historic Resources Plan for the Township. This plan was started in 2023. Throughout the summer and the end of the year, we had a significant amount of public input and engagement through that. We've taken all of that information that we've gained and put it into the final plan. You have the plan in front of you. Over the past month or so, we've been getting comments and reviews from members of boards, the public. We received a nice letter from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. All of those comments have been incorporated into the final plan, and we are asking for the board to adopt the plan by resolution. You should have a resolution in your packet that would memorialize this as the open space preservation plan for the township. Once this is approved, I know that we are also working with staff. We're working with members of the township's environmental advisory council to get some plans and information together for their work plan to start to work on some of the implementation items identified in the action plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the plan or next steps.
Chris, thank you. Thank all involved in this plan. I know that you've been working on this for a very long time, and it's really wonderful to have it in our hands in a printed copy. I did review it online, and it's really a fantastic work product that I'm excited to hear about the next steps. But some of the content here, the potential land uses are just beautiful, and I think I hope that it sparks some new types of small businesses here in town that have been pictured here, and farmettes. It's just really wonderful. So I just want to thank you. It's spectacular. And I'm curious to next steps, but I'll let the rest of the board ask questions before.
I'll just follow up on that and say this is just an unbelievably great product. So thank you to you and to Dave and to Jeff and all the people and entities that poured so many hours of work into this. This is really, when I take it back to the 30,000 foot level, this is sort of the missing piece, right? That we've been missing in this township for just way too long, and we finally have it, and it's wonderful. And all the praise that you guys have received from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and from the other partners is just so well deserved. It's not unexpected, but it's so well deserved. And the only comment I'll add, and I know Dave has said this before, but you know, a plan is good, but it just shouldn't just sit on the shelf. So we're at the end of this really long, complex journey, but we're at the beginning because it's time to dig in and all get to work and put our heads together and start implementing this, which will be somehow even greater than what we already have. So thanks again for all your hard work, and next steps, ready to go. So thanks, Chris.
Such a great job, Chris. I'm so happy for this, and I'm grateful to you for all your hard work. I also want to mention the graphics and the photos. It's just so beautifully done. So thank you to all who are involved. Jacob touched on this about having a plan sit on a shelf, and I know we discussed this with the comp plan, both very different types of plans. Will this be revisited on a yearly basis? Hey, we were able to accomplish A, B, and C from our landscapes plan. Will we touch base every year to see what we're doing so this does not sit somewhere, which I don't think it will. Different type of plan, but.
No, that's a great question. As I mentioned, so now that we have the Environmental Advisory Council activated, as you mentioned before, this is kind of the missing piece. So what we're doing with the EAC is preparing a biannual work plan that takes some of the information directly out of this plan, some of the actions identified, and we will be putting that into a potential work plan for the EAC to take action on. And then we're hoping to look at that at our Monday meeting and then bring that draft work plan back to the Board of Commissioners for review to actually kind of activate the EAC to start to work on some of the specific items in there, including some of the mapping, some of the suggestions to updates to our township official map. I can say if Dave were here, he would say stay tuned, because there is a lot of things bubbling that we are ready to jump into as soon as this is adopted and we can kind of start to move into the nitty gritty. The high level stuff has been great. It's, thank you, for commenting on the graphics and the photos. I have to kind of thank you and some of the other members of the board and the public. One of the things that I'm very proud of with this plan is when we did some of the public engagement, we had a photo survey initially in the beginning that we asked people to submit photos of some of the things they loved in the township. And you can see a number of those photos in that plan, including, I think, the photo on the front page was submitted by a resident, or on the cover of the plan was submitted by a resident. So it really is a community-driven plan. The actions, depending on whether they are of a policy level or a specific exercise, they will be, as we have done with the comprehensive plan, brought to the board periodically as we start to move forward on items like this. There's suggested updates to our zoning ordinance, or suggested updates to the subdivision land development ordinance, and as I mentioned, the official map, and the proposal of additional resource protection ordinances. Those are all very high priority things I think we're ready to start moving on. And I think as we move through some of that, I can see the Environmental Advisory Council taking more shape in some of the more public outreach components of this plan, and some of the messaging behind this plan, and more on the softer end instead of the policy and ordinance work associated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other board comment?
No, I mean, I just have to reiterate, it's a great job.
Thank you. Tommy, did you? I encourage members of the public, will this be available on our website for?
Yes, it's on the website now,
Okay.
on the landscapes portion of the website, and then I'll probably work with staff, depending on other things that we have going on, to see if maybe we can put out like a news article once it's adopted, and maybe just some additional notification for it. And yeah, we're excited to have this ready to go. And I know the EAC is very excited to kind of have this as kind of their guiding document to continue to move forward. And that's the other nice piece of this, is it, as staff, we kind of work on the tasks at hand. The board, obviously, you're handling what you have to handle. The EAC, this kind of becomes their also their outlet to the community. So I think some of the things in this plan can also be very much relayed to the public through them.
Excellent. I'm very much looking forward to next steps. We live in a really beautiful community, and I think you really captured, you with the consultants and Dave and staff and community input, really captured a nice snapshot of that here. And I'm looking forward to next steps. So thank you again. Okay. Need a motion to, I'm sorry, I need public comment. Is there any public comment? Anything online?
I'm not seeing anything online.
Did you have a comment?
No, I'm just going to make a motion.
Okay, well, I need a motion to adopt said resolution adopting the 2024 South Whitehall Township Landscapes Plan.
Motion.
Second.
We have a three-way tie. We have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Chris and team. Thank you. Agenda item 9A, motions. We have a motion to approve the 2025 minimum municipal obligation MMO for police, public works, and office personnel defined benefit pension plans, and approval of the 2025 MMO for non-uniformed employees defined contribution pension plan. Tom, if you would please present.
Thank you. So the Executive Office is respectfully requesting a motion to approve the 2025 minimum municipal obligation for the police, public works, and office personnel defined benefit pension plans, as well as the minimum municipal obligation for the non-uniform employees defined contribution pension plan. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania requires public agencies to approve the MMOs for each of the respective pension plans administered by the township on or before September 30th of each fiscal year. This would be the last public meeting in which you could take action on the MMO for this year to meet that deadline. The worksheet percentages, normal costs, and administrative for the defined benefit plans are derived from the actuarial valuation report dated 1/1/23 that was previously submitted earlier this year to the Commonwealth in accordance with Act 205 requirements. The defined contribution plan is a flat percentage of 6% for the employer contribution. The township will receive its state aid allocation for 24 on or before September 30th. This year it's actually September 25th. So once those funds are deposited, the township is required to then distribute the funds into the custodian bank account for the pension plan. So I will advise the Board of Commissioners once that action has been completed. To date, the township has not, we actually did receive it today. So we are getting the specific state aid distribution amount for 2024 on September 25th, and it's actually above our current budgeted amount. So some good news there. So with that, I'd seek a motion to approve the 2025 MMOs for the office pension plan, which is $761,391. The police pension plan, which is $1,349,032. The public works pension plan, which is $780,915. And the defined contribution plan, which includes office and public works personnel, $243,312. Total to be approved is $3,134,649.
Thank you, Tom. We'll open up to the board for any comments or questions. Any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I need a motion to approve the 2025 MMO for police, public works, and office personnel defined benefit pension plans.
Motion.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I need a motion to approve the 2025 MMO for non-uniformed employees defined contribution pension plan.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And item 9B, we have a motion to proceed with release of security for Montar Self-Storage Certification Number 1. And Tom, if you'd please present.
Thank you. So this is the project which is located at 3350 and 3354 Walbert Avenue, which is substantively complete, and a certificate of completion has been issued to the developer. It included a 3-story, 112,800 square foot self-storage facility. So they are asking for their first letter of credit reduction. So they originally secured $717,235.75 in public improvements, and $100,000 of that was secured as a cash escrow. So the township engineer did review the release request. So they have a letter dated September 10th, 2024 in your packets. So security release certification number 1 included the Atlanta bus shelter and 80% of the spray irrigation system. So the release for category 1 work was $353,136.25, and category 1A was $174,160. Category 1B was $75,410.50. So the total, I think for category 2 was $25,795. So the total release of as approved and recommended by the township engineer is $628,501.75. I'd seek a motion to authorize me as the township manager to sign the security release letter in that amount.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. I do want to thank our township engineer for the review letter. And I'll ask Tony Tellerider if you have any additional comments for the board.
No, this construction actually went relatively well. It's quick, it was clean, and they got in and got out. So we're happy to have it done and complete and have the doors open.
Very good. Thank you for your assistance. Are there any board questions or comments? Any public comment? Very good. I need a motion to proceed with release of security from Montar Self-Storage Certification Number 1. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 9C, we have a motion to approve an amendment to the professional services agreement with Bowman Consulting Group Limited for the development of the South Whitehall Township Active Transportation Safety Plan. And I'll again call on our long-range planner, Chris Stroller, to present.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the transportation plan the township has been working on with the consulting team at Bowman over the past year. This is the start to a much more comprehensive transportation plan. We are starting with kind of the 3 phases that we're titling Engage, Active, and Safety. Engage is what we've been doing over the past several months, and that's working with the community and our stakeholders, including other municipalities, our Lanta, obviously, PennDOT, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and trying to better understand the existing challenges and opportunities of our transportation network. The ACTIVE stands for the Active Transportation Plan, which we've been talking about a little bit tonight. These are non-vehicular users of our roadways and so forth. And then the safety covers what the Federal Highways Administration calls a safety action plan, identifying and prioritizing safety strategies for both vehicular and non-vehicular uses. Originally, when we had hired the consulting team at Bowman earlier this year, the township last year received a Pennsylvania WalkWorks grant through the Pennsylvania Downtown Center for $20,000 to be used towards the development of an active transportation plan. We've combined the work of the active transportation plan and the safety action plan into one, since a lot of the engagement and a lot of the focus on our roadways, there's a lot of overlap there. The grant that we have through PA WalkWorks expires at the end of this month. So originally we had asked the Bowman team to end their contract at the end of this month to ensure that we were able to wrap that up and meet the grant deadline. Just last week, I had a conversation with the grant administrator of the WalkWorks program, and we are satisfying the grant requirements for that. So we're able to actually close that grant out on time. What we're asking for is an extension of just the contract itself, the contract date through February of 2025, so that we have time to take the draft plan, which we're hoping to have wrapped up by the end of this month, ready for October, and give the time that it needs to go through the review process, both with our steering committee, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, public, and host another public meeting. We felt like it was very condensed to try to do that in a short amount of time this fall. So we would like to extend just that component of it. And in order to do so, we just need to extend the contract with Bowman themselves. So we are asking for a motion to extend the contract of the professional service agreement with Bowman just in the date itself. Unfortunately, I do not have a copy of the contract amendment itself for your packet. I'm working with the team at Bowman to get that through the legal end, and we can certainly come back if necessary, but I think what we're asking is authorizing the township manager to execute that contract when it comes in.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation. Are there any board comments or questions?
So the contract is $20,000 and September 30th.
No, the contract itself, I believe you have it in your packet, is more than that. Just the grant was for $20,000. The rest of the contract we're covering with township funds. So the grant portion, we will be reimbursed $20,000 for the money that we've spent already.
So what's is extending this contract, is that going to increase the amount of township funds to be used?
No, it's the same amount of work. We're just stretching out that work to allow more time for public review and board review instead of asking everyone to have, a couple days to review the plan, then we release it to another party to review the plan. We just want to give maybe, a month's worth of time so that we can have the plan ready for review and have a public meeting
Okay.
associated with that.
So
That's the same
refresh my
amount of
memory,
hours.
how much is township funds are going to this? Do you know off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, it's around $70,000.
7 or 7D?
70, and that is counting the $20,000 reimbursement. So in total, around $90,000 for the two plans that we're preparing with the Bowman contract, of which we will be reimbursed around 20. And that's just rough numbers.
Hope they ain't any rougher. A lot of money.
Is there further questions, Commissioner Peischel? Were you on the board when this was approved? No. So this is a long-term transportation plan that's been in the works for quite some time.
Correct. This was identified as a top priority in the comprehensive plan. And we have done a lot of work as far as staff in preparing what we can for this, due to the nature of the complexities of the engineering and so forth. We have sought out a consultant to be involved to help us put this together.
Yeah, one of the goals for this project too was to be able to take this and then apply for federal funding that's available through the Safe Streets for All program. So we have to go through this process in order to be able to apply for that funding.
And specifically to address some of the safety concerns that have been identified over
Yes.
time in the township.
Yes.
So this is the vehicle that we need to complete in order to qualify for grants.
Correct. This is a way for us to identify specific capital projects that there are grant funds out there available to help with, whether that be state funding or, as Tom mentioned, federal funding through the Infrastructure Act. And what we're hoping to get out of this is an identification of a lot of those types of projects and ways that we can actually move forward to actually get some of the capital money that we have not been able to access because we just haven't had the plan ready to go. And it hasn't been identified as a priority. And specifically for the Federal Highways Administration, some of the funding that we've been looking at, this is a requirement. This is the first step requirement to do a safety action plan like this.
And then the total contract, just to give exact numbers, was $80,121.63. So 20,000 of which would be funded by the grant.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment?
Sorry, I did have a question. I'm really sorry. Chris, did you say that around October you were hoping to have a public meeting?
October, we are hoping to have the draft plan complete. We would first take it to our steering committee for review on that, and then as well as staff review. And then we were actually looking at December for a potential public meeting, but having released the plan for public view in November, barring any major changes from some of the initial reviews. And that's kind of where we're working that's why we're looking at extending it until February of 2025, just to make sure we're not getting down to the end of the year. And just with scheduling, we don't want to have a meeting to adopt it. We want to make sure that people have ample time to weigh in on the plan, review the plan, and the board feels comfortable with the feedback received in order to adopt it.
Okay, great, thanks. I just wanted to make sure I had my dates.
Yes, we're really trying to focus on wrapping up the plan, the draft plan right now, so we can start to get some of the action items identified, and then we'll definitely have a lot of outreach with that draft plan ready to go for public consumption, and then advertise a meeting as such.
If there are no further commissioner comments, any public comment? Nothing online?
I'm not seeing anything online.
Very good. At this point, I need a motion to approve an amendment to the professional services agreement with Bowman Consulting Group for the development of the South Whitehall Township Active Transportation Safety Action Plan. Do I have-
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you again, Chris. And item 9D, we have a motion to proceed with capital purchase heaters for the Public Works Garage Co-Stars contract. I'll ask our Director of Operations, Herb Bender, to please present.
Thank you. Public Works has been working on converting the old electric heaters that we currently have that run off 100 amps per heater to convert them over to natural gas, which will be more efficient. The ones we have chosen are the Resonar UDX series, has an efficiency rating of 82 to 83%. The reason we're not going to get any higher than that is due to it is a garage. The big trucks pull in, the garage doors got to go all the way up, then come all the way back down. The heat does escape. So we're never going to get an efficiency of 100%. The other reason we chose to go this route was the maintenance of these. These are very simple machines. Again, Public Works can do it with Dual Temp, who is the contractor that we will ask for the motion to approve with. They have done all the other heating and air conditioning in the building when it was renovated. So we already have a maintenance contract with that. So to add these would not break the bank, and why have two if we don't need to? The other heating choice we did look into was infrared heaters, which is like a strip heater that goes down the middle, shoots down. It is a lot more expensive, and that we have no clue how to fix in Public Works. So we would need a service contract with that, along with a maintenance contract. The other issues we see is we would have to shield all the air lines that run across the ceiling. We would have to shield all the oil lines that come across. And if they do overheat, they melt, we could come in the next morning to a disaster. So the action we are requesting is a motion to approve the replacement of the Public Works heaters to Dual Temp in the amount of $45,950. This is a CoStar's quote. This was budgeted in capital for $150,000. And why we put the $150,000 when we were working through there, that as you can see in your packet, the infrared heaters was $151,000. So that's why we did budget on the high until we had a firm choice of which way we wanted to go.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation, Herb. My only question, thank you for providing the specs for the Resonar heaters. Is there a warranty on the heaters?
Yes, there is a manufacturer warranty. I don't recall what it is right off the top of my head. But yes, there is a manufacturer warranty and a workmanship's warranty with them also.
Very good. Thank you.
And Herb, I take it we do have a natural gas hookup there. We don't need a propane tank or anything?
No, the gas line actually is already run through the Public Works garage and stubbed out. We were supposed to do the heaters when the building was renovated, but they didn't get done. So we are looking to get that done now to help save funds and be more efficient.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other board comment? Any public comment? None. Very good. I need a motion to proceed with the capital purchase heaters for Public Works Garage Co-Stars contract.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Herb. Agenda item 10A, correspondence, information, boards and commissions. Tom, if you'd please review our upcoming meetings.
Yes, upcoming meetings and events are as follows. Monday, September 23rd, 5:30 p.m., we have the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission meeting. Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m., we have the Environmental Advisory Council meeting. Wednesday, September 25th, 7 p.m. is the Zoning Hearing Board. Saturday, September 28th, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. is the inaugural Sunset to Summer Festival at Covered Bridge Park. And Wednesday, October 2nd, 7 p.m., Board of Commissioners. All locations are here at the Township unless otherwise noted, and the details are posted on the website.
I just realized that we did not also include Police Night Out next Tuesday.
Oh, I'm sorry for that oversight. Next Tuesday, September 24th, starting at, I believe, 5 p.m., right? At Covered Bridge Park is National Night Out.
Very good, thank you. Just noticed that myself. And item 10B, we have our public notice. The Board of Commissioners will meet in a budget workshop special meeting on Wednesday, October 30th of this year at 5 p.m. here at the Township Building. It will also be available virtually. Information is on the Township website. Anything to add to that, Tom?
No.
Very good. And item 11A, under direction and discussion, we have lead and copper service lines, PADEP and EPA revisions. And I'll ask Director of Operations Herb Bender to please present this item.
Thank you again. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and then DEP and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has made some revisions on how lead and copper service lines must be handled by a public community water system owners/operators in accordance with the requirements of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Lead and copper service line inventory requirements. We are required to submit our full inventory by October 16th of 2024. We do have that. We are getting ready to submit that. And with that information right now, you can either label them as lead, galvanized, not lead, or unknown. So in our system, we have identified a total of 6,653 lines in the main and consecutive system, with 1,384 lines being labeled as non-lead and 5,269 as unknown. There are a couple different ways to identify the unknown service line. One way is to do predictive modeling and water sampling for lead. The downfall with that one is, with the predictive modeling, they cannot give me a percentage of what will be removed. That is one of the downfalls of the predictive modeling. There has never been anyone who has used it and didn't get a good result, but I don't feel comfortable with that until I get some kind of percentage that they're going to guarantee me would come off of that. The other way is soft excavating, 3 holes, but that has recently been changed to 2 holes now. They are asking for 18 inches on both sides of the curb stop to know if it's lead or copper on either side. We are currently checking on pricing on a company to do the soft excavating, to go down on both sides of the curb stop to verify the material. We have some now that are CoStar's quote. They range from 500,000 to 400,000. So with being CoStar's, we're not 100% sure if it has to be prevailing wage. So we sent an email out today to the state to see what their ruling is, if it has to be prevailing wage, or is this considered maintenance and it does not have to be prevailing wage. Right now, the quote we have at $500,000 is prevailing wage. So the utilities are required to replace the lead service lines at a rate of 3% per year, or 100% of the lines within 10 years. Whichever is the fastest. This includes the both public and private side of the service line. What we're looking for is direction on, we own from the main to the curb box, the township. The residents and business owners and commercial owners, they own from the curb box or meter pit to the building. So we need direction as to, does the township want us to run them all the way in and we pay for them? Or do we have this where we notify the homeowner, which we have to do either way, whether how we decide to do this, that they have a lead line that has to be replaced? We could go a couple different ways. One, where the township does it. 2, we could give them a 30-day period to get under contract with a plumber to say it will be removed that they're going in the right direction to get that done. The other way is the township could get a plumber ready. They're not under contract in 30 days. We move the plumber in, they do the work, the plumber bills us, then we bill the homeowner. And then we'd have to work it out if the homeowner doesn't pay, how that would go then. So right now, if we did do 5,452 homes that are all unknown, worst case scenario, with a project that's going on in the township with roughly around $6,000 to connect from the curb box to the house, would roughly be around $32,712,000 if the township would decide to take that cost on. Township personnel intends to conduct extensive public education with residents to let them understand the importance of why these lead lines need to be removed due to health risks. The current action level for the lead and copper testing are 15 parts per billion for lead and 1.3 parts per million for copper. As of October 16th of 2024, the action level was lowered to 10 parts per billion for lead, and copper stayed the same at 1.3 parts per million. This year, coming up in 2025, is our lead and copper sampling year that we have to do for DEP standards. We are required every 3 years to do 30 tests. So we will reach out to residents throughout the township to see if they would be interested in participating in the lead and copper testing. There is potential for regulation changes once the LRCI is finalized come October. And just so the LRCI is the lead removal. So we will report back with any changes as we are made aware of them. The administration team of the township will look into grant funding to try to help offset any costs of this unfunded mandate. So the action we're requesting is just direction on how the section from the private service line from the curb box to the home would be addressed, which we have pretty much our SOP complete except for this, how we're going to address the rest. I can't get that finished until I get some direction. And I understand if we can't get the full answer tonight, it's a lot of money. Again, it's residents involved with it. So if we need to take time where everyone can think about it and we come back at a later meeting so we could just get direction so we could finish out our SOP part of this.
Thank you, Herb, for this very comprehensive presentation. Certainly is a significant amount of money that we're discussing, both if the entire project as well as for each dwelling, homeowner, business in the township. I guess I have a question. I don't know that there's an answer to it. Do we have any idea what availability might be out there for grant funding?
I know Penvest has some available. In order for us to really apply, we're going to need our SOP to explain how we are going to be handling this. So until we're going to look for funding any way possible through LSA grants or Penvest or anything that's out there, but we kind of need the SOP for the grant to explain how we are addressing both sides of the line.
I would imagine it'll be a pretty competitive bid process for grants because every municipality throughout the state is having to take the same action.
Correct.
Very good.
Yeah, I just have three comments. One of them is specific feedback you're looking for. First, I want to thank you for the diligence that you've put into this project. It's certainly large. I imagine how frustrating it must be for Public Works. But really, thank you for the hard work you've put into this. My second comment is, I don't know when you want to have the SOP completed, but my preference would be prioritizing those 5,200, almost 5,300 unknown lines, and whether it's drilling, predictive modeling, really figuring out how much of those are going to have to be remediated. $32 million is a lot of money, but there's also a huge difference between 5,000 homes that are going to need work as opposed to, once you go through it, it's 2,000 homes, 1,000 homes.
Yes, and that number of the 32 million, that was worst case scenario.
Right.
I do not believe that is going to be our scenario. As of today, I have to look at it that way, but as we uncover them, we will come back to the board with updates to let them know if the quote we got for roughly between 400,000 and 500,000 of the soft excavation would be to do 600 homes a year, which gets us through that 10-year cycle and enough time to get them replaced within the 10 years also.
Yeah, so that would be my preference before giving a definite answer about what we want to, how we want to handle it. Because obviously, if it's only relatively a few homes, we might be able to build that into the budget.
That's the only issue, though. I can't give you that number because if I want them all done in 1 year, just say 500,000, we could be looking at $5 million just to get the inventory portion done. And then as we find out which ones are lead, which ones aren't, we only have 30 days to get it out of the ground also. We can file for an extension, which gives us a little more time if we get an abundance of them in a row, but it's not very long also. And we would look to replace those with the public works crew here to try to offset the cost of the contractor verifying and a contractor to install it. The only portion I would look for, the lead side from the main to the curb box, public works would change. My concern with running it from the curb box to the home with the public works employees is that somewhere down the line, 15, 20 years, the same resident lives there, they're younger, and that line breaks. And we installed that. Are they going to say, no, the township installed that line, you own it? That's one of my concerns. So we would have to get something drawn up with the homeowners. That's why I would look, if we could possibly, to get a plumber on our side with us to give very reasonable prices to the homeowner, allow them to do it, then it falls under the plumber's warranty work.
And that would, thank you for explaining that, not just for us, but for the public as well. Then I think that would definitely be my suggestion. If you feel that's best, I understand the issues.
And what we're going to do is when we go out and we find lead through lead and copper testing, that's how we are going to prioritize which sections we go to first. And these 30 samples that we're going to originally take early next year in the time slot we have, and we get a house that's very high, that's where we would start the soft excavating to see if anybody else has any lead also.
Could the predictive modeling be utilized on a high level just to help with the financial projections? Is that a possibility?
Is all the predictive modeling does is basically the ones that are marked as unlead, that gets put in. The ones that are unknown get put in also. All the information we have given them, and then they run it through this model, and it'll come back and say, we know this area is no lead. But they will not only take the predictive modeling, there has to be a second verification with predictive modeling where we would have to pull a lead and copper sample from that house also that was labeled as unknown. So we would have the predictive modeling and the lead and copper sample as our double verification that it is not lead.
Right. In other words, just to use the predictive modeling now, just to get a financial
and
number.
Predictive modeling, I believe right now, and with the sampling, it's $35,000 for the company for predictive modeling and all the sampling and everything else that comes with it, the letters that are going to have to be sent to the homes of everyone that is unknown. Every year we are going, as they stay unknown, we have to send letters letting them know that we don't have it. We're working with 120 Water on that right now. And we're also looking to get a card made up that can go out in our fourth quarter bills, first quarter next year, to see if they can help us verify them. So we would not have to, if predictive modeling can't do it, that we could get this card back and pull a sample. That's another way we could verify. So we are going to try to be very proactive with this. Again, the predictive modeling along with sampling is around $350,000 for a year. So it is a little cheaper, but when I did go to Blue Conduit, who we're working with on getting these quotes, who works directly with 120 Water, who we've been working with for 3 years now, they cannot give me a percentage of what they think it will knock off the list.
Herb, I did have a follow-up. So we're talking about from the curb box to the house, service lines to the main. What about the water pipes in the roads?
They are not worried about those right now. I have a feeling in my gut, after we get through the next 10 years of this, we might see something with those because of the old. You have some galvanized mains if they're 2-inch, which we had on Tillman Street, which is going to be getting eliminated in the 309 interchange project. You also have the cast iron pipes with the leaded joints, where they actually put the two pipes together and they filled the joint with lead to seal it. As of right now, they're not doing anything. They want the inventory going into the homes currently.
So it's possible if we were to complete this project and then do water samples, there could still be lead in the water because we haven't looked to the source of from the origin of where the water comes from into the house.
It could be, there could be, again, coming from the main, because that pipe is so big, coming down into a 1-inch service line or 3/4 or 5/8, depending whatever you have, getting the lead from there into your house, it could happen. I can't say it could never happen, but the levels would be so low.
So the most concentration is in the smaller pipes coming into the
Yes,
house.
because it sits in there. The mains keep moving. So our systems here are all looped together. So the water just keeps moving. The service line, unless you open your tap, flush your toilet, run your sinks, bathrooms, that water is just sitting in your pipes. That's where it builds up. So like when you take your lead and copper sample in the morning, you have to let it run for a little bit and then turn it off, then turn it back on and put the sample in the bottle.
Thank you. Very helpful.
It's going to be very tough for our residents. I'm thinking specifically now from the box to the house. Did you say that there's a possibility to contract, that the township contracts with a plumber to do this work on the residents' homes?
Yes, we could work that out, yes.
And my other feeling is it possible to give our residents a choice? Like either you go with our contract plumber to do this, or you get someone privately to do it, but you have to let us know by a certain date and you have to have it done by a certain date, just to give them choices.
Yeah, what we can do is we could get it's very tough because some service lines are short, some are very long. So we could get a plumber that we're saying every time we get one that the homeowner doesn't want to do, I can't guarantee you how many you're going to get a year, but maybe he would have a better price if he thinks he knows roughly what he could get work from us in a year. And then the homeowner absolutely has every right to go out and get their own pricing to see which one is the best price for them also.
Tom, when we did came in for the water rates and all that kind of stuff, was any of this considered in that?
No.
So the 32 million is if we would pay for that, all of those homes, knowing that some of them we won't have to do, right? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that would all be extra money on top of that, spread out over 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Which we can reach out to them. We were just trying to get a feel of this side, and then we can reach out to them to have.
No, I was just thinking, because I have to agree with Jacob that, from the curb stop to the house, and like you said, if that's on the homeowner, how can we assist the homeowner? Because it's going to be a cost, whether we have a payment plan or whatever.
Mhm.
But I definitely don't think it should be us picking up that cost. Because eventually we're going to have to do the mains like Ann said.
The other question I have is, and I don't have the answer, I'm just letting you know what I'm trying to work on. Is there some insurance companies that insure your service line going into your house where it's included in your homeowner's insurance? So with these new regulations, do these homeowners and residents have the option, if it's lead, that because DEP is making a mandate to remove, will the insurance cover that with that service that they're already paying for?
Good question.
Yeah, I just have,
Yeah, sure. Just please come to the mic. We unplugged.
I do know that Erie has the coverage because I have it on my house from the curb to the house. I pay $60 a year. If it from the curb to the house goes bad, they will cover it up to $25,000 was the policy. So it is through at least Erie. I don't know about any other insurance companies.
I guess the question would be define if it goes bad as opposed to a government mandate. That's,
Yeah, I don't know which way the insurance companies are going to look at it. I have it, so I'm actually trying to talk to my insurance guy to see if that's something State Farm, who I currently have, would be willing to cover that. So
very good.
I have one final comment, and this is really for the residents and the water customers. This is a complex topic. It's certainly not something that the township takes lightly. It's certainly something that Public Works has really put a lot of thought into. But there's one thing I think that all the residents have to realize is that this is not coming from the township. These are unelected agencies, Harrisburg, Washington, that are putting forth a rule, even if it has good intentions, but they're forcing you to bear the burden, and they're not providing the funds to cover the costs. And ultimately, it's on the township, it's on the whole operators of water systems in the Commonwealth to enforce it and to actually interface with the customers of the water service. So please realize as we work through this, as we conduct a public education program about what this really is, it's yet another unfunded mandate that we unfortunately have no control over. And if you're feeling, upset as we are, confused as we are, and certainly eventually once you feel the financial costs of this, which hopefully we're going to try to help you as much as we can, contact not just the township, but your state legislators. They control the state budget. They can hold agencies accountable and provide them with the fundings so that we may have less unfunded mandates. And they can make the agencies sort of answer for the regulations that have a direct financial impact on you. So as we work through this tough process, reach out to them as well. Express your concerns because there may be an opportunity there for them to help get funding, to help us with grants. Make it known that this is an issue and that it's going to affect you personally, because we talk about replacing the line, what that may cost a couple of $1,000s. That's a lot of money for retirees. It's a lot of money for people on a fixed income. So it's certainly annoying at best. And please advocate for yourselves, for the township. Talk to us, talk to your state legislators. We're really trying to do the best we can. It's not easy, but at least in South Whitehall, we're going to handle it as best as we can with the great public works team that we have here. So that's just what I'd say to the residents to make this very complex, very aggravating issue a little, hopefully, simpler.
Well, and just as a point of reference for residents, this isn't happening today. This is a long range project, and the memo does contain information that there could be potential changes once the LRCI is finalized. Next month, we might see changes to this that might change the direction and the conversation we're having this evening.
There's still so many unknowns. So
Yes, there's a lot of unknowns in this whole lead and copper revision, a lot of unknown lines in our system. So till we can get a grasp on what is actually in the system with service lines, get the actual revisions out in October and go through them, we would have a better direction of how everything's going to fall out. As of right now, like I said, we're pretty much there. We just need to know curb box to the house. And like I said, it's a very tough decision. I don't expect the answer tonight. It's just something I wanted to bring in front of the board, let you think about it, and then we could come back in a month or after the October 16th, maybe the first meeting in November, to let you know exactly what the revisions look like if they put them out on the 16th. So
Thank you for that. I personally think that that's a wise decision, that the board should wait until any potential revisions come in, because what decision we might make today might not necessarily be the one we'd made if there were revisions to this. So I would be in favor of,
correct.
as long as it doesn't impede your work,
No, I'm looking, once I get the full layout of the revisions, like I said, I'm 90% done with the SOP because a lot of it is testing regulations, which we already have to follow that stuff. It's just a replacement from the curb box to the home. The rest of it is pretty much finalized. So I'm looking to have it in place by the time January or February would come. This way, when the contractor would move in to start doing verification of the lines, or if we go to the predictive modeling with the sampling, we are going to have both of those scenarios laid out in the plan so we would know which way everyone is going to follow.
thank you, Herb. Any other board comments? At this point, we will not provide any direction. We'll wait to have this on a future agenda after the October 16th
Yes,
revisions.
sure.
Very good. Very good. We have no old business courtesy of the floor. If there's any member of the public that has any comment on any non-agenda item.
We have a comment online.
Very good. If you would please give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, this is Mark Bradbury. Can you hear
Evening.
me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I live at 4279 Heather Court, and over the last 8 days, we have been inundated with what I consider a small attack from.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you had broken up. I heard your name and your 4279, and then I didn't hear the name of your street or anything else you said after that.
It's Heather Court, Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, over the last 8 days, we have been inundated with the arrival of the new construction of the ramp for 309 and Tillman Street. We did get a notice in the mail from Sun Oil Pipeline that there would be work being done in our area. 8 days ago, a amount of probably no less than 10 to 15 tractor trailers came down Heather Court with 15 to 20 work trucks, driving through my private property, destroying the grass, burning the grass, dripping oil, killing the property, ripping up the property, blocking the driveways, raking off the edges of the roads, because the roadways here cannot sustain that type of heavy construction material. I put up no trespassing signs. I put up red flagging to keep them out of the area that I maintain and is part of our neighborhood association. They have completely ignored our pleas for privacy. And we are very concerned that if this is just the beginning of what's going to be happening over the next year or two during the construction of this new ramp, that this is not acceptable. It's a very quiet community. There are 2 dead-end streets. The streets are not up to public standards. Pretty much they are based on a little bit of stone with some chip and oil and 2 thin layers of macadam. They cannot sustain heavy truck traffic or the type of construction that's going on at this point in time. I have documented every day of the onslaught of this ridiculous assault on my neighborhood, and we are very upset. As I am the president of the association, all of my neighbors have come to me to have me express my concerns and our concerns in the neighborhood. All the children have stopped playing. The parents don't let them out anymore. Behind us is Cedar Creek Farms. All of their neighborhood is barricaded with orange construction fence. Our neighborhood is not. And there are huge pallets of up to 12-foot high materials that are teetering that the children could climb on or could fall over on them and injure them. This is a public safety, health, and welfare emergency, in my opinion. I have talked to the code enforcement and the public works today, and they said that they have no contracts with PennDOT and that they have no idea what's going on in our area. I want to let you know that I am going to be following this very diligently, and my next step is to contact PennDOT and my state representative, and I will put an end to this one way or the other. We are very upset. We can't get out of our driveways. We can't get our cars in and out of the streets. It is horrible. And I would hope that the commissioners will take this and make sure that somebody looks into this as soon as possible. Tonight, up to 9:12 p.m., way past working hours, we had 2 unknown vehicles without PUC identification pull up in front of my house, get out with flashlights, and we're walking up and down the pipeline area. And, we don't know what they're doing. They're behind my house. I see flashlights going up and down through the trees. I don't know what they're doing. I'm concerned. This is very, very critical. And I want you guys to take this to heart and make sure that you help us out in this situation. I'm very upset.
Mr. Bradbury, thank you for your comments. We appreciate you bringing this to the attention of the board and our township personnel, and I'm going to ask our Director of Operations to respond.
Good evening, Mark. It's Herb Bender. I spoke to you this afternoon when you said you were going to speak with this gentleman, Ted Fenstermaker from the state. I am also placing a call to the state, and I am going to come out there tomorrow to observe what is going on. I know it is the Sunoco pipeline work as what's taking place right now. So if we have to, we will find out who the contact for Sunoco pipeline is that is in charge of that job site, and we will do everything in our power to help you get this issue rectified.
Yes, and I would really appreciate that, Herb. If they wanted to designate this as a laydown area and take over the whole half acre out in front and destroy it and give us all, $50,000 a household to ruin our neighborhood for 2 years, maybe we would have accepted it. But this onslaught of ridiculous and absurd, type of behavior is unacceptable. I've been doing this for a long, long, long time. I have never seen anything like this. Not only that, I am insisting that we are, as a neighborhood community, completely indemnified and held harmless, although most of their work, not all of it, but most of it is contained within their right of way. The other portion of it is within our private property, and we want to be indemnified from any type and held harmless throughout this entire thing that has to transpire with this interchange, renewal project. This is ridiculous. If somebody gets hurt out here, we can't afford to be paying claims against us because somebody fell over a twig in our yard. This is totally unacceptable. This should have been handled a long time ago, and I blame PennDOT and Sun Oil. I haven't seen one Sun Oil representative. None of the trucks have PUC numbers on them, on any of the vehicles. They're from Illinois, Arkansas, all over the country. I know this is a rush job, but I don't want it to be rush, and inundate our community with this hazardous type of behavior.
Mark, I am going to reach out again to the state tomorrow. I do have your contact information already. As soon as I have a time, I will give you a call. Even if I don't hear from them, what time I will be on site, if you would like to meet me there to go over everything. And if I can get a meeting with someone on site from the state or Sunoco Pipeline, I will notify you of that also, if you would like to be present for that meeting.
Absolutely. And Herb, I appreciate your diligence on this, as well as Laura, as well as the Board of Commissioners. We just hope that you guys stay diligent with us in our community. And with all our respect, we put all of our trust and faith in our township in South Whitehall.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradbury, and thank you, Herb, for following up with him tomorrow. And would you please keep the board apprised as this progresses through so that we're aware of the conditions there and the residents' concerns?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any? You're welcome. Is there anyone else for courtesy of the floor online, Chris?
I'm not seeing any of the comments in the chat.
And no one here present. Very good. Agenda item 14, I need a motion to authorize payment of invoices and disbursements.
So moved.
Motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We have no executive session to schedule. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I'll second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.